Now we're gonna start with the easiest one for this class, or the easiest kind of version of this movement. I'm gonna have you join me on your back, have your ball, have your foam roller nearby, just in case you need it. For some people that are a little locked up in this direction, they'll find having something like that helpful. It's not necessary by any means, but you might find it helpful for you. So what I want you to do, take your hands, make two little C's, and I want you to find your ribs and then keep going down your ribs until you find the soft spot that lives between your pelvis bone and your rib bones, okay? So you'll find there's kind of a gap in between the two, and then just keep going down until you find the very top of your pelvis, which will feel like a bone that's kind of shaped like this, like my hand on my left side here. You're gonna push down on that bone. Okay, and that's going to be a big landmark throughout this class. So I'm going to have you monitoring that bone throughout. We're going to try and work on lateral flexion of our pelvis in this class. So kind of hiking up our pelvis on one side, dropping it down on the other, such that the gap between those two bones increases on one side as it decreases on the other side. And you'll know that you're getting it from the right spot if you find the top of that pelvis on each side. And then what we're going to do is, you can either watch my hands or watch my feet for reference here, and you can either think about your hands or your feet. For some people, focusing on different parts works a little bit better. So as you just lay on your back, and just however you naturally find yourself laying on your back, don't worry about tucking or arching or anything like that right now. Just however you naturally are, I want you to try and make your right leg longer than your left leg, but the rule is you cannot bend your knee. So knees have to stay straight, and you're gonna notice, if you think about how you do that, what you're gonna end up doing likely is making your right leg longer by hiking the left side of your pelvis up towards your ribs, such that you've decreased the gap between your pelvis and your ribs on the left side, and you've actually lengthened the gap between your pelvis and your ribs on the other side. So that is a way to accomplish making your right leg longer and your left leg shorter without bending your knee. Then you're gonna go the other way, and if you watch my left hand, you're gonna notice it dropping as my left leg gets longer and my right leg gets shorter. Now I've lengthened this side between my ribs and my pelvis, and my pelvis has dropped down. Then we're just gonna go back the other way. So right leg gets longer, left leg gets shorter. Reduce the space between your pelvis and your rib cage on the right side. Increase it reduce it on the left side, increase it on the right side, and see how big of a stretch or just how much you can lengthen that right side. You might not even necessarily feel a stretch depending on how far you're able to move, but you should notice it lengthening. So now left leg is gonna get longer, right leg is gonna get shorter. Left side pelvis bone is gonna drop down, and then we're gonna go back the other way. Left side hikes up, right drops down. And just smooth it out for me. And if you're really struggling with actually accomplishing the motion, this is where having your ball or your roller can come in handy. So I'm gonna take my ball, I'm gonna put it just between my knees. I'm gonna give it a light little squeeze. Something that keeps you around hip width apart works really good for this. And then as I keep a light little squeeze on that ball, I'm just gonna do that same thing. But now I'm gonna notice that ball is kind of being rolled towards me by my right leg as I make my right leg shorter. And then I'm gonna roll the ball towards me with my left leg as I make my right leg longer and left leg shorter. And you're really just going through that motion and just checking, okay, how far can I go in each direction? Can I produce this motion? Do I really have to focus on this to make it happen? Do I find my knees wanting to bend on me? Do I find my spine wanting to arch and lift off the floor? Or can I, without changing that arch on my floor too much and without letting my knees bend too much, can I just take my spine through straight lateral flexion, or take my pelvis and kind of hike it up on one side, drop it down on the other, and then take it the other way? Then you can start to explore, okay, if you gently try and flatten your low back out into the ground a little bit, which will be posterior pelvic tilt, can you go through those same motions while maintaining a slight posterior pelvic tilt? Do you notice that things suddenly stiffen up on you? Or do you notice that as you try and go through that motion that you lose your posterior tilt and you tend to drift back into extension? If so, you might want to spend some time here working on this. And you'll definitely want to bear that in mind as we move to the harder versions of these exercises, because if you're already starting to drift into extension here, it's probably going to be even harder for you not to do so in the subsequent exercises. get better at controlling it here, and then you'll find it gets a little easier in the other versions as well. Then you can do the same thing if you kind of increase the arch between your, or underneath your low back, and you can do so even just by sliding your hands just above your tailbone, and then you'll feel like you've created a little bit of an arch there, just so that you know what we're going for. You can leave your hands there or take it out, I don't care. You can also use your hands there to monitor, okay, can I keep that fairly consistent in terms of the arch that you have in your low back going this way as you take yourself through the hiking on one side and then the hiking on the other side, or lengthening one side of your abdomen and lengthening the other side as you hike that pelvis up, and then drop it down from side to side to take yourself through those motions. For some people, they want to keep their hands on their pelvis the entire time. All good, do whatever works best for you.